It has been a while since our last medieval game announcement, and I feel a little bit lost, you know? Since Bannerlord came out, nothing in our community has really stood out in terms of big upcoming releases. Yeah, okay, we had Chivalry 2 that is supposedly on its way, that I admit is starting to turn me around and looks kind of cool at the moment. Or Bannerlords, which is the new city builder. Well, it's a bit more than that. Go and watch my videos if you haven't already. That looks amazing. But in terms of big AAA titles, there seems to be somewhat of a lack. But with the Game Awards happening and The Last of Us 2 whitewashing it somehow, pretty mediocre game if you ask me, there were many new titles announced though, and one stood out in particular to me: Hood, Outlaws and Legends. Thank you to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video. They are back. They came in such a wave a few months ago, and there's been a bit of hibernation since, but now Raid Shadow Legends makes a return, and I'm bringing you the most hyped RPG on mobile and PC anywhere. You can play it anytime on any device, whether you've got an Android, an iOS, or even on your computer, which you can see that I'm doing right on screen. There are 10 challenging dungeons, and every dungeon has its own boss that you're going to require a specific strategy and set out in order to become victorious. You can choose between dwarves, orcs, or the undead. If you have a faction that you like, Raid has it for you. I know, it's mind-blowing. The graphics on this mobile game looks like console quality graphics, and trust me, if you have seen Ride to Hell Retribution, you know what I'm talking about. Raid is super active with over 200,000 clans fighting, competing right now with over 25 million active players. And this month, Raid's got their biggest update out. The main event is already here, the Doom Tower. It's a giant tower with 120 floors, a bunch of secret challenge rooms, and a lot of bosses to take on. So if you want to get a huge head start in Raid, all you have to do is hit the link in the description and get your free Void Champion, an XP booster, 50 gens, some energy refills, and even an Ancient Shard as soon as you get in the game. Because we all know, Raid Shadow Legends is the future. In a violent medieval world, outplay rival gangs in intense PvPvE multiplayer heists, moving in stealth to steal treasure unseen, all dominating through loud and brutal combat. Only the best will escape with hard-earned riches. Now, when a game comes along with tags of medieval and gore in the same sentence, instantly my ears prick up. Not because I have some sort of strange fetish, I see you there, but because the medieval genre, despite being obviously a period known for its violence and blood and guts, especially in warfare, it's always kind of given a miss when it comes to, you know, those true gory games. It's kind of ironic, I know. But Hood, Outlaws and Legends is taking players into a medieval multiplayer setting. Don't expect any Kingdom Come Deliverance kind of realism here, but using a creative license to bring a dark and dingy world to life seems to be the route that the developers at Sumo Digital are taking. I mean, with a past in racing games, what can go wrong? The publisher's last big release was in fact Farming Sim 19, so you can tell what a brilliant masterpiece this is going to be. Can I just say, I don't know if you've seen it, there's a channel on YouTube called ESO, and he's been calling this an RPG. Look, I like Skyrim and those type of games as much as the next guy, but please don't be misled. Not every medieval game is an RPG, and this definitely is not an RPG whatsoever. And let me tell you why. I'm sure when I revealed this game was multiplayer focused, many of you were turned off, and me too. Look, I love Kingdom Come, I love Mount and Blade Bannerlord and its single player elements. This isn't that. But the reason this did take my interest is they're home on bringing a different angle to the gameplay itself. You have 2 teams of 4 players competing to execute the perfect heist. A bit like a medieval Payday if you ask me. Yes, you are the medieval rogues with a hell of a lot of skill, being set tasks and missions to complete whilst other teams of 4 are doing the same. But alongside these PvP elements, AI guards will be patrolling the medieval environments. Getting past them is your first assignment. Are you going to use stealth to jump down above them Assassin's Creed style, or let out a blood-curdling scream as you hack through player and computer-controlled characters alike? But each of the characters you choose, as you'd expect, to have their own unique skills and abilities that you can utilize throughout your missions. It sounds cool, right? You could have a guy with a bow, you can have a guy with knives, you can have a big hulking guy, but then it kind of starts to turn me off the game a bit. Mystical abilities for each character. Right, I need to have a little bit of a rant here. Why does this always happen with medieval games? Look, I love Lord of the Rings and D&D and all those medieval-inspired fantasy magic stuff as much as everybody else, but why does every medieval game have to have magic in it? It doesn't make sense to me. I love going in and using spells and things in certain games, like Skyrim, great, works perfectly. The Witcher, pretty cool. It has its own lore behind it. But there are so few games, especially in the AAA market, that really focus on medieval and do it properly. I feel like Bannerlord and Kingdom Come Deliverance are the only ones that have really done that in a really faithful way. It seems like developers think that everyone that plays a medieval game is going to ignore it unless it has some sort of magic spells or wizards in it, and that's just not true. We've seen by the success of Kingdom Come that ultimate realism in medieval sells, and it sells fantastically well, and I'm not even wanting ultimate realism. I don't really care. If a game isn't realistic, it doesn't annoy me, but I'd like to be able to go in and just use bows and swords and axes and do flips and just assassinating people. Even Assassin's Creed, there's nothing realistic about that, but it's cool, and the lack of spells and magical abilities is amazing to me. And I just wish that more developers would have the confidence, because I think that's what it comes down to. I think they do believe that the AAA audience, the people that play Call of Duty, Battlefield, FIFA, won't even look at a medieval game unless it has some sort of spells to catch their eyes and attention. And I don't blame them, because I think there's some truth in that, but it is a shame to see. And I think it will put off a lot of people. Not just the fact that this is multiplayer only as far as we know so far, but the fact that they've decided to make it completely magical and mystical based. Now, I'm still going to play this game. I think it looks awesome, and I think the gameplay revolving around heist is something very unique and awesome that they've decided to put in there. We've never really got a medieval game that revolves around heist and stealth, and you know me, I love a good stealth game in the morning. And at the end of the day, it depends how well these mystical elements are implemented, whether it's just full magical spells or using that very trademark looking through walls visions and things like that. If it's that sort of thing, if it doesn't get in the way, I think this is going to be fantastic. But if people are running around shooting spells at each other, I think it's going to make this a very different game, because the developers have come up with something amazing here. If they can portray a dark, dingy, gory medieval world whilst making a fun PvP and PvE game all mushed into one, doing heists and missions along in co-op with friends, that could be awesome. But if this just becomes another multiplayer, run at each other, throwing spells at each other, trying to find the best places to throw your smokes type of game, unfortunately, it's not for me. I think the gameplay looks absolutely awesome. I think the environments that they have created are very well done and very expertly crafted. Some of the armors, whilst taking a lot of creative license, do look cool, and at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's historically accurate, if it looks cool. That's the rule that I've come to accept in this day and age. And if they create a game where you can have some really in-depth combat situations, I think it's going to do really well. But we haven't heard any of that. We've not seen any of that. All we've seen are people jumping off buildings, running up behind people, assassinating people, and stabbing people. I doubt there's going to be much in terms of in-depth combat that you can actually learn and get good with. I think it's going to be very much an Assassin's Creed style of pressing a button to fight. But what do you guys think? Do you think the gameplay looks cool? And whilst it is mostly cool cinematic trailer stuff, there is a few things that we can probably take away from it to get a decent idea of what we can expect from the game. Are you like me and kind of fed up of every medieval game having to add in some sort of spells or wizardry, or do you quite like it? Make sure you leave a comment down below and I'll be sure to read it. But please leave a like on the video, it helps more than you could ever know. And subscribe to the channel, because I will see you in the next one.